TheAnswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
Insert Democrat socialist here.
Runs the Democratic House floor for 30 plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, how it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when you're moving out. I said, when you're moving out.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. That theme music usually means it's time for our weekly conversation about all things Illinois policy related with Ted Dabrowski from wirepoints.org. But he's no longer at Wirepoints because Ted Dabrowski on Friday made this announcement.
Hello, my name is Ted Dabrowski, and I'm running for governor because in Illinois, we can do better. And I know we can do better because I've seen the opportunities this state can provide. My own parents immigrated to Chicago in 1960. My father escaped communist Poland, and my mother left Ecuador as a 19-year-old. They met on the L, and they began weaving their version of the American dream right here in Illinois. And they achieved it. Their sacrifices allowed me to make my way through college, earn an MBA from Wharton, and embark on a successful international career at Citibank. I gained an even deeper appreciation for America as a young banker in Mexico, where I helped that country innovate and expand its financial markets to more fully integrate into the global economy. I then moved to Eastern Europe, where for 9 years, I helped a post-Soviet Poland reform its economy, raise its standard of living, and expand opportunity. Today, Poland has become one of the world's most dynamic countries because they restored individual freedom, resurrected the private sector, and tore down the barriers to entrepreneurship. I'm proud to have played a role in Poland's transformation. It's amazing how the right policies turned what was the poorest country in Europe into an economic powerhouse. Fast forward to today. For more than 15 years, I've been championing pro-freedom, pro-growth reforms for Illinois, a state headed in the wrong direction.
And that's why he's running for governor. Ted Dabrowski, Republican gubernatorial candidate, joins us now. Ted, thanks for being with us.
Good morning, Dan, and thanks for having me on, and excited for the new challenge here.
And I should say, I mean, not surprisingly, I'm supporting Ted in his gubernatorial bid, so factor that in as you see fit. Yes. I mean, just give us a little bit of the why, a little bit more of the why. We sort of heard in that part of your announcement video or intro video that your background, your personal story that people may not have been as familiar with, but just a general description of why you think you're the right guy for this time.
Well, I won't avoid what really has impacted me all my life, and that's my parents. My dad was such a freedom fighter and such a lover of America, and my mom too. So I was raised by people who lived in very different worlds, but they loved this country. They became citizens here, and it was the freedom and opportunity that they came for. And I've watched, people who know me have seen me work for the last 15 years. I thought, I talked about this in my announcement speech, but I thought that if I just was persuadable with the facts, with the right answers, with pointing out the failures, pointing out how other states are doing so much better than us, that I would persuade enough people to change things. But we've seen that this political process won't change anything right now. It's too corrupt. It's too fixed, as a guy famously said a few years ago.
Huh.
And so I said, no, I can't keep doing that. I know, I've been working in this space. I know the political system. I know what these people are like. I know what the fake reformers are like. And so I said, I can't stand this anymore. I'm going to get in. I got help in my speech, and somebody said, I know how the sausage is made and why it tastes so bad, and I want to change that. So, I said, I've got to put my hat in the ring and get into the fight.
And I mean, the Republican Party, too, we've talked about this many times, the sort of the void that has been left by the lack of an opposition party to go up against and challenge all the policies as well as pronouncements of a Pritzker and the rest of the power structure in Springfield.
Well, that's a key part, and we know that we have to go up against Pritzker and that machine that's been there for a long time, but to do it right, we have to have a great Republican Party that's unified, and today it's anything but unified. And I think the lack of leadership is really what's torn it apart. It'd be something that I really want to offer is that leadership. We've had Republicans vote for the green energy bill, which is now we're seeing our energy bills are doubling. We've seen Republicans vote for Amendment 1, the workers' rights amendment. We've seen them vote for helping double the gas tax. And, I think a lot of Republicans are just voting their conscience, kind of doing what they needed to do to keep winning in their districts. But in the end, it's destroyed the Republican brand. So I think we need leadership so that we don't keep voting the wrong way. Republicans voted for this recent pension bill and for the mental health bill. You can't, this is the stuff that has to change. We can't fix Illinois if Republicans are complicit in that as well.
I want to also mention your running mate because, you got to put together teams these days. You have to run with the lieutenant governor candidates, not voted separately in the primary like it used to be. And somebody I know, like you do, Dr. Carrie Mendoza, who's been on this show, talk to us about your running mate and that choice.
Yeah, so I had to look around the state, and there's many different strategies. Everybody has different ideas. Hey, you live in Cook County, so you should choose somebody from downstate, et cetera, and everybody's got a different view on that. My key thing was to find somebody principled. I can't talk about the things I talk about, things where we have to lead and be principled, if my running mate also doesn't share the strong values of things like school choice, say no to tax hikes, all those things, and also who kind of understands the real world. And Dr. Carrie Mendoza, she's been an ER doctor for 25 years, and she's just not an ER doctor. She works in the safety net hospital, so she really dedicates herself to taking care of anybody who needs immediate help right then. And it's almost like she's ideal for Illinois because Illinois is an emergency, and we need somebody who thinks about it that way. And she's got 3 kids. She's been a great ally for me, and we pushed for school reopenings when the schools were closed. She's pushed against all the COVID restrictions that we hated and wanted to push against, and so she's been a great partner for that. And she's principled, and I think that's starting point number one, and aligned with really trying to make this state the place it should be. She's got three boys that are all in college. She wants them to come back to Illinois and live here in Illinois, but they'll only do that if we make this state the right kind of state.
I saw out of the gate the coverage was fairly positive, except for the Chicago Tribune, typical because they hate conservatives, and mentioning Jeannie Ives and others. I think I was mentioned too. But anyway, they hate conservatives. They obviously consider you and Carrie a conservative, and also a threat because they're on the attack right out of the gate.
Well, it was predictable. I think the Chicago Tribune, guys like Rick Pearson and others, they don't want change. They want to preserve exactly what's there now. They're huge defenders of Pritzker and the status quo. Yeah, it's not surprising, but I think it's a positive thing. They're pointing out that we want change, and I mean that's what all Illinois should want. We're trapped here with a shrinking population, with the highest property taxes, with the second highest gas taxes. Our kids can't read, and that's the kind of stuff that the Chicago Tribune is defending. We're going to fight to change all that, and that's our goal. So let them hit us. The
big question for Republicans, even if I like Ted Dabrowski or somebody else, but let's just say I like Ted, but I mean, can he? You know the question: can he win? How does anybody win? He has no chance. There's no chance for Republicans to win in Illinois. Pritzker's money. How do you address the viability question for you or any Republican to defeat Pritzker and his money?
Well, what's interesting, the first thing I point out is, he spent over $400 million in the last 2 cycles to get himself elected, him and others. So $400 million. He went up against a candidate that did strongly downstate but didn't do well at all in the suburban area. And yet Pritzker only got 54.9% of the vote. So it's not like Pritzker's getting 60% and 65%. You would think that all that money would buy him dominance. but it's less than 5 percentage points. So that's number one. Since that last election, we've had the immigration crisis, which has really, dampened enthusiasm for Pritzker, especially among the black population and Latinos too. You've had the Trump effect since then, where we saw blacks and Latinos go towards Trump. Trump got 2.4 million votes, which is more votes than Pritzker got. Of course, it's two different elections, but the point is there are many people who voted for Trump. And then you add the crime issue that's going on. Pritzker's on the wrong side on that. The whole gerrymandering thing, Pritzker got nationally recognized for being on the wrong side on that. So there's many, many things where I think there's disenfranchised people in Illinois who will they vote for Pritzker for a third term if there's Pritzker fatigue. And so I think there's a real opportunity for a Republican, done right, a unifier who can bring together those disparate groups. You got to be able to persuade them, because we're talking about independents and centrist Democrats. You've got to be able to work with them, communicate with them the problems of the state, and that, hey, Republicans, you can't blame Republicans for the mess that's happened here. Give us a chance. Like Trump said, what have you got to lose? So I think that there's a real chance at least at getting to that battle for that 50% plus one. It's there, it's reachable, but has to be great execution here in Illinois among Republicans.
You mentioned the suburbs and Bailey just getting wiped out in the suburbs in 2022, which happened. So how do you get back to sort of the numbers that Rauner pulled in the suburbs in 14, or frankly even 18 would have probably been enough? How do you get back to those numbers? I mean, you're from the suburbs, a professional guy from the North Shore, so I guess that helps somewhat. But is it? Do you think is it public safety? Is it sort of the business climate here, tax and spend policy? What do you think?
Well, I think I think still the kitchen table issues. Obviously, the people who live in the suburbs, especially in the North Shore and places like that, they can handle more taxes and they can handle, more mess because, they're sufficiently wealthy. But nobody wants to live in an environment where Illinois is kind of the laughing stock of things. And you feel kind of ripped off if your property taxes keep going up and yet the services keep going down. And so I think there's an ability to persuade people just on the kitchen table issues of it's just too expensive to live here. There aren't enough good jobs. Our kids can't read. But I think there's the other element, and just it has to be done well and has to be communicated well, is that, we've gone too far in our schools with the DEI. We've gone too far in the boys and girls sports. There's enough people who they can see that things are out of whack because of those kind of things. And so, the parental control loss, there's going to be a lot of parents who feel like, I don't like this, where I've lost my rights as a parent. And again, we're talking about winning at the margins, right, Dan? We're not trying to win everybody, and certainly the people who are on the other end of the spectrum will never come our way. It's really just trying to find the pockets of disenfranchisement, whether it's between blacks, Latinos, or the suburban mobs who feel like they've lost control of their rights. Just adding them up, being persuadable, and just being consistent. And just getting to that 50% plus one.
Well, and you mentioned, so you're going to lean into the cultural issues, which has been something that a lot of Republicans have been loath to do, or to the extent they've done it ham-handedly, like Bailey did last go around. Your running mate, Dr. Carrie Mendoza, has been outspoken on the trans issue as well as it pertains to children. She's a medical doctor. And so that's something that will have to be taken up because it presents a contrast between you and Pritzker. So I just a little bit more color on that, and then concern after what we've seen, the political violence in this environment right now, concern for, speaking commonsensically, but with moral clarity about issues of cultural import like that.
Yeah. I'm glad you used the word moral clarity, because I think that's our power. There's different approaches to talk about these cultural issues, and if you live in Georgia or Alabama, you can speak about them more strongly because there's much more alignment in the South with the strong cultural conservative values. Up here in the North Shore and in the western suburbs, we've got to speak about it smartly, right? We can't shove these things down people's throat. And, you take a book like Abigail Schreier writing about the trans movement. She does it very professionally, very, very scientifically, very, think about mental health. And that's what's great about Carrie. Carrie has been involved. She's an emergency doctor. She's a medical doctor, and she sees a lot of mental health cases in these safety net hospitals. She understands these problems. And so when you think about trans, she's concerned about what happens to these kids, their mental health, if they're transitioning at 13, and how you have to, you better be damn talking about it. You better have the parents engaged, not out of the picture, and have them engaged, talk about the issues, and make sure you protect these children, because it's not right to be transitioning. She's also engaged in detransitioning, right, where you see people feel like, wow, I made a huge mistake when I was 13. I'm 23 now. I can't do anything about it. And this is a big part of the thing that doesn't get discussed. Both Carrie and I will say, look, anybody who's an adult can do anything they want, right? That's, it's a free world. We're talking about, what happens to kids when they're 13 or 14 or 15, and they're making physical, medical decisions on their body that they can't undo 5 years later. And that has to be a massive discussion and controlled, like we're saying. We're seeing Trump push back against it. Hospitals have been cutting it back. It's moving in the right direction, but we need serious discussion on it.
Well, and we've used some of Carrie's remarks on this program because, one of the things that she talks about, which is really center cut right now, is the politicization of science generally, the politicization of science and medicine. And so that's really where she's coming from, which is great to have a medical doctor who has the standing to talk specifically about her, practical experience, as well as her, sort of belief system when it comes to the Hippocratic Oath.
Oh, absolutely. And during COVID, I got to work with her a lot during COVID, and she hated that part where you couldn't dissent on what was going on during COVID. Yeah, we lost our voice, we lost our freedoms, and she was a big fighter of that. That's number one. I think the other big part of her lived experience in these hospitals is she sees how difficult it is to give care to the very people you're trying to take care of. The layers, the bureaucracy, the lack of freedom to discuss things is really hurting her ability to treat her patients. And that's, she'll talk a lot about that.
All right. Before we let you go, just in terms of those kitchen table issues you mentioned, how do we make Illinois a state that is opportunity rich and where the cost of living is reasonable and people's homes aren't being liquidated by property taxes and all the things that you've been talking about for these last 15 years?
What's amazing is, obviously, if we have a few minutes, little time for that in terms of detail. But what I get so inspired about was, I lived, before I came back to Illinois in 2007, I lived in Poland for 9 years. And I got to work with everybody where we just wiped out. And I was just one part. I'm not going to overplay it. I was one part of the many people working in Poland, but we wiped out all the bad things that we went from an economy there that was all controlled and owned by the state, by the government, to one of free markets again in the private sector. In Illinois, we've moved so far away from letting the markets do their things. We have too many government controls, too much government spending, too many government mandates, top-down mandates. It's become molasses. I was with a business person yesterday. And he said that every law that's passed only inhibits his ability to do business here. And he said he's not going to invest here anymore. He's going to invest in his other states again. And this is the kind of stuff where we have to unwind, undo, take away these burdens, take away the mandates, and let our people and our cities and our companies manage themselves. Got to end these top-down mandates. So it's a big task, but I do think that with the right spirit and the right agency heads, because remember, the governor gets to name a whole bunch of agency heads, we can really change the culture in Illinois and change it to a culture of growth and optimism.
Ted Dabrowski is a Republican candidate for governor in Illinois. TedForIllinois.com is his website for more information on his candidacy. Ted, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dan.
And Ted joined us on the Turnkey.Pro Answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer. Don't miss In Grace with Pastor Jim Scudder Jr. Now heard on Sunday mornings at 7:30. Tune in and find hope as Jim Scudder explores God's Word and His world each Sunday morning right here on AM 560, The Answer.